joined by two of our enterprise advisors as well, who will be talking more about the role and how they found the volunteering. So we are recording this session as well. I just wanted to make that clear before we kick off. Okay, so today we're really going to be talking to you about the Enterprise Advisor volunteering role and how you can use your passion and strategic skills to even engage your workforce as well around this to help prepare and inspire young people for the fast-changing world of work. As I said, my name's Charlotte. I work in the CIPD Social Impact and Innovation team, supporting the Enterprise Advisor volunteering role. Today's webinar is really going to focus on how you can help to provide to shape the careers education that's happening for young people within schools and how you can make them feel very confident entering the world of work and going into the right career for them. At the CIPD, we know that this is especially important work during these current circumstances caused by COVID-19. As you will have all seen the impact this is having on the education world, from things including school closures, exams cancelled, homeschooling. But becoming an enterprise advisor, it's a really vital opportunity to help with and highlight the importance of careers education continuing. So you can use your professional skills in a different way, and it's also a really good way of helping your organisation to achieve some of its corporate social responsibility and resourcing aims as well. So today we're really hoping to give you quite an in-depth overview of the volunteering, why it's important during these times particularly, how things have been adapted as well to keep you safe as a volunteer. As you'll see on the screen, this is the CIPD team who work on the Enterprise Advisor programme. So going from left to right, left we have Ali, who is actually hosting today's session. So if you have any technical issues, you can contact her directly on this session. She'll be able to help out. In the middle is myself, and on the right-hand side is Olga, who is the program manager, and you might see her being active in the chat box today. She's happy to sort of chat along, answer any questions you might have, but also we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So also joining me today are our fellow enterprise advisors. So we have Jo Fellows and Simon North. So they're going to be presenting and sharing their experiences as an enterprise advisor volunteer. So I'm just going to ask them both to unmute themselves quickly and just to introduce themselves to you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Jo Fellows. I'm a HR manager with Devon County Council and also a fellow of CIPD. I've been an enterprise advisor now for 3 years, and I've worked with 2 local secondary schools during that time. With my day job, I lead the county council's apprenticeship arrangements, amongst other things, which is really why the starting point for why I wanted to get involved as an enterprise advisor. But also I've worked in local government HR all my life at sort of professional life at local and national levels. So I was keen to sort of develop my network and link with people from different sectors, and being an enterprise advisor has also really helped me with that. And the third thing is I've got 2 boys, 11 and 15, so I have a sort of personal interest in careers education in school and knowing what's going on. So that's another big driver for me.
Hello, I'm Simon North, and I live in Somerset and have been working as an enterprise advisor in North Dorset since 2017. My background is that I've worked in a number of large businesses, Rolls-Royce, Shell, PwC, KPMG. As an HR professional, like Jo, I've been a member really since leaving college, but also as a general manager. These days I work independently as a consultant and as a coach. And in recent years I've run a careers business advising people around the world, but we also produced about 1,000 online materials that relate to career development and transition. This is a real area of interest to me, and I'm delighted to be involved as an enterprise advisor.
Thanks both. So I'm just going to run through a couple of housekeeping things just before we dive more into the content. So you'll see here on the slide how to connect to audio. Our host, Ali, will monitor the chat section for any queries, so please do message her directly if you need to. And as I've mentioned, we are going to be recording this session, so that's really for anyone who isn't available to attend, or perhaps you'd like to watch this back at a later date as well. We'll make the recording available to you. So again, just to explain a bit more about the WebEx environment, we will be using the chat box to take questions. Please don't use the Q&A section because we can't see the questions and comments being posted there. We can only see them coming into the chat box. So to open the chat box, please click on the speech bubble icon, which is at the bottom of your screen. That will then turn blue, and then you can see the comments that are coming through. So you can chat to everyone by clicking all participants, or you can just chat to the attendees, or directly to Joe and Simon and myself as well if you want to send a message to panelists. We'd recommend sending to all participants, and then we'll all be able to see your questions and comments as we go through. So yeah, the chat box is really a great way to share your thoughts and ask any questions as you go. And we will have a Q&A session at the end as well. And as I said, my colleague Olga will also be monitoring questions, so she might be responding as we go through. So what we're going to be covering today on today's session, you'll hear from the CIPD about how we are tackling social issues. And then you will hear from the enterprise advisors about the enterprise advisor role in more detail, the impact of getting involved in this volunteering program, what you'll get out of it. And I'm also going to touch on the CIPD and the Careers and Enterprise Company partnership. So the Careers and Enterprise Company run this program and we support them from the CIPD side. We're also going to have time for questions, as I've mentioned. So to kick off, we just thought it'd be helpful before I hand over to the enterprise advisors, just to give you a bit more of a background information about the CIPD for those who don't know, and how volunteering links to the HR profession, but it can also be undertaken by professionals from other backgrounds. So CIPD is a professional body with a social purpose. We champion better work and working lives, and we support the HR profession. And we feel that work can and should be a force for good. The social impact team, of which I'm part of, translates CIPD's purpose into action by leveraging our voice and membership to drive positive change across the good work agenda. We're a very proud organisation, which is powered by over 3,000 volunteers, and it's great that this number is growing every year. And our volunteers, they help us to champion better working lives through various community engagement programs, including the Enterprise Advisor program, which we'll hear about today, but also mentoring fellow professionals, hosting events up and down the country, supporting small charities, and supporting young people to transition from education to employment, or helping them to get into their first job. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll be able to see a list of our key partners that we work with to deliver our mission. And the key one today that we're going to be talking about is the Careers and Enterprise Company, who does run the Enterprise Advisor Programme, and Team London as well runs the London side of that programme as well. So Ali is actually going to share some links if you want to go through to our volunteering pages to find out more about the volunteering programmes that we do at the CIPD. And I can see that Ali has put that in the chat box already. Thanks, Ali. So for the main reason that we're all here, the Enterprise Advisor Programme. This programme is run by the Careers and Enterprise Company and supported by the CIPD. We've had a really successful partnership that we're proud to talk about with the Careers and Enterprise Company. Our CEO, Peter Cheese, has spoken about why he thinks it's so vital for professionals and HR professionals particularly to engage with schools. So for a bit of context, around 4 years ago, the CIPD joined forces with the Careers and Enterprise Company on their Enterprise Advisor Programme to deliver vital volunteers to the programme. At this point, youth unemployment was at a high in England, and we knew that CIPD members and HR professionals could be a vital support in bringing this number down. HR and people professionals have the insight into what employers need and how future generations could deliver these needs. The key piece that's always been missing was ensuring that these skills are being taught in schools and not being expected to be taught after the individual had left school or graduated. There was also a real opportunity here for employers to promote their employer brand and provide a potential pipeline for new recruits, bearing in mind the ongoing recruitment and skills shortage issues that employers often experience. So the CIPD and the Careers and Enterprise Company partnered to bridge the gap between employment and education. And from the CIPD side, we work with the Careers and Enterprise Company to promote the Enterprise Advisor opportunity to senior level HR professionals. And we're really proud to say that last year, the CIPD and Careers and Enterprise Company won an award from the Association of Excellence Awards for Best Partnership of 2019. So that's just a bit of background. I'm now going to hand over to Jo and Simon, who are going to share their experience of the Enterprise Advisor role and really talk about the ins and outs of what the role is. So Jo, I'm going to pass you the bubble, and now you're in control, and take it away.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Charlotte. Telling you a little bit as a starting point about what the Enterprise Advisor role involves. So as an Enterprise Advisor, obviously it's a voluntary role, working with schools across England. You're linked to a specific school in your local area, but it covers the whole of England, and it's about shaping the careers education strategy for that school. It is primarily a strategic role. It is about working with the school, particularly their senior leadership team and the careers leader, to develop, implement and evaluate their careers offer. So that strategic piece is really, really important and really valued by the school. But of course, it's also an opportunity to provide support in other ways as well. One area which is really welcomed by schools is around supporting the actual careers activity in school. And I think if you're working at a strategic level, you need to understand anyway what's going on in school and help with some of those activities, talk to young people and the staff and so on. And a big area that an Enterprise Advisor can help is around increasing student encounters with employers and workplaces, which is a key element of the career education requirements and benchmarks, which are known as the Gatsby benchmarks, which we'll talk a bit more about in a moment. So, for example, for me, there's a number of things that I've been involved in school. One was that I helped to design and deliver an assessment centre employability session for a group of Year 10s. And then more recently, I helped the careers lead to develop a leadership-focused assembly for Year 7 and 8, bringing in sort of local business people and contacts that I got to answer student questions around leadership. So that's a really important part of the role. It's also about using your existing contacts to support the school. So, for example, in my day job, I'm part of the Southwest Apprenticeship Ambassador Network, and I've been able to use that to bring in young apprenticeship ambassadors in to do school talks and so on, which has been really useful. Being a HR manager, you have a massive amount of transferable knowledge and skills which lend themselves really well to an EA role. And obviously, if you're not in HR, it's similar, but been working at a strategic level. Again, you've got those, lots of transferable skills you can use. I've really enjoyed using my strategic thinking, for example, to help the school take a step back and consider what they're trying to achieve with their careers offer, which has really helped them to think about the bigger picture and how they're linking their careers offer with the Gatsby career benchmarks, which we'll talk about a bit more in a mo, about how it links with their wider school improvement plan and, of course, Ofsted requirements, which are a growing sort of focus in the careers arena. It's also, as Charlotte said, a critical role in bridging the gap between education and employment. As an enterprise advisor, you do really bring that real-world employment knowledge and experience to the classroom, and you can ensure that the advice that the students are given really matches today's world of work, which teachers who've worked in a school environment aren't necessarily best placed to be able to give that real-world advice on what employers are looking for. And it also provides you with really useful intelligence to use in your own organisation to support actions around resourcing, skills and so on. In terms of the commitment, it's about 8 hours a month, and you have to be connected or sort of sign up to commit to connecting with the school that you've been linked with for a minimum of a year. In terms of those 8 hours a month, it very much varies in terms of what your input is. Quite a lot of it I find is sort of emails, liaison with the careers lead, the enterprise coordinator who I link with, We also have a termly face-to-face meeting at school, and I've attended sort of the odd governor or staff meeting or whatever, which is usually about 5 o'clock in the evening, sort of early evening. For me, the school that I'm linked with now is really close to home, and they have their tutorial and assembly times first thing in the morning from 20 to 9 till 9 o'clock, where we do quite a lot of careers stuff in terms of signposting and so on. So that worked really well for me because I can sort of pop in there on the way into the office. So it definitely is doable. And 82% of schools say that having an enterprise advisor has really helped them to improve their careers plan and strategy. And Simon, do you want to tell us a bit more about how you feel you've made an impact in your school?
Yeah, thanks, Jo. So one of the really appealing things for me is that each enterprise advisor's role is different, as each school and each college has different challenges. I really like that. I like the fact that there isn't a template that's being dropped on us and through the enterprise advisors, that you can bring your own original thinking, your own experience, the sort of things that you've heard Jo talk about just now. In my particular context, I work with an 1,850 pupil school, so it's really quite large. And the career leader is fantastic. And she has been in the school for over 30 years. So there's not much that she doesn't know, and not many people that she doesn't know within that community. And that is a huge advantage in a school with those sorts of numbers. Also, she is absolutely brilliant at managing all of the careers work that goes on. And because of the sheer number of pupils involved, it feels like a military campaign whenever they go and do something like work experience for a week or whatever. And actually, one of the big issues for the school in the coming years is that she is going to hit retirement age soon, and we've got to think about succession, because so much of it has been resting on her shoulders, even before the impetus of what the Careers and Enterprise Company and what we are doing as enterprise advisors. So that's just one element that is meat and drink to us HR professionals, but is actually incredibly important for the school. And that leads me on to just touch on what Jo says about strategic input. You may have already noticed that although the commitment is for 1 year, Jo and I are both in our 3rd years. And for me, when I took this on, I saw it as at least a 5-year, probably 10-year commitment. And the reason is that the challenges are so important for us as a society in each of these institutions that we really have to take the long view. And the long view that I have taken, and the interface that I really have with the school, other than through the careers leader, who is my main oppo, and I would not do anything that wasn't in line with what she's trying to do, has been with the teaching staff on the one hand and the parents on the other. So I've been trying to do some quite innovative things, which really take account of the fact that there is very little time. There's very little time in the curriculum. It is absolutely jam-packed. So to try and get anything else in is really a challenge, coupled with the fact that schools have had real pressure with their funding. So this is a classic example of innovative thinking for us, because we've got to try and do things with those enormous constraints. In addition to that, in my school, apart from parents and guardians coming to meet teachers to talk about their young person, there was no parent forum at all. And I'm looking at a school of 1,850 kids with probably about 3,000 adults, most, if not all of whom will be working. Now just think of the enormity of that resource pool that is not yet being tapped. And the reason I'm interested in it is that I think in order for career change to happen in Britain, we have to find things which are sustaining and sustainable, and where the institutions themselves can actually look after themselves to a greater degree, rather than constantly reaching out beyond their communities to employers and so on. Whilst they're important, they cannot be the bedrock on which this type of change happens. So that, I hope, gives you a little bit of an insight into my thinking and the sorts of things that I'm doing. It is a huge challenge. It is just so enjoyable as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simon. So talking a little bit about the support then that you get as an enterprise advisor. Well, for a start, you're not on your own. There's about 3,000 other enterprise advisors across England, who work with around 3,600 schools and colleges. And the network is run nationally by the Careers and Enterprise Company, which Charlotte mentioned at the beginning, and then coordinated locally via the local enterprise partnerships. So each enterprise advisor has an enterprise coordinator who sits within the local enterprise partnership careers hub. And that person is there for you every step of the way as an enterprise advisor, and also supports the school and the careers lead in school. And that's really invaluable, as it gives you and the school all the intelligence on what is happening elsewhere within the network. And it's somebody that you can check things out with, you know, particularly if you're new to sort of a school environment. There's lots of information and support they can give you. Alongside that, there's a wealth of resources on the Careers and Enterprise Company website, and often your local careers hub will also provide material. And certainly part of the Southwest local enterprise partnership, that careers hub that I work with, has got lots of materials. They do newsletters and all sorts of different things to help us as enterprise advisors and to help the schools. And it's great because now the network's so well established and there's so many resources to tap into, you really don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are two key tools that schools, enterprise advisors and enterprise coordinators use. One of these is called the Gatsby benchmarks, which I mentioned earlier. And these are internationally renowned careers education benchmarks, which have been used in the careers industry for some years. And they provide 8 areas of focus, from things like having a stable careers programme to providing meaningful employer encounters to students. And what sits alongside that is something called the Compass tool. And this is a self-assessment tool that the careers leader in school completes in liaison with their enterprise advisor and coordinator to determine where the school is in relation to the Gatsby benchmarks. And you know, when you start working with the school, and then periodically as you continue to work with the school, the careers lead will do that Compass tool, that self-assessment, and that will help you to determine what the focus is, what are the things that perhaps for this academic year you can help the school with. And it really helps to sort of focus and shape the school careers programme improvement plan. There's also an EA workplace online group where you can get to network and learn from other enterprise advisors from multiple industries and sectors from right across England. So that's really helpful. And there is also a sort of opportunity, if you want to feed into sort of the bigger picture at a regional and national level. So I represent on behalf of Heart of the Southwest LEP. I'm the enterprise advisor representative from the LEP on the National Careers and Enterprise Company EA Enterprise Advisor Network Advisory Group, and I also sit on the local LEP's Careers Hub Steering Group. So I'm there really to represent other enterprise advisors in our area to feed in, get feedback on things that are happening, things that perhaps could be improved, and so on. So, if you're interested in getting involved in that way, sort of an additional role alongside the main enterprise advisor role, there are ways to do that. Or if you just want to feed in as an enterprise advisor, you have some thoughts about, what could be improved, then find out about who your local enterprise advisor rep is and, link in through that way. So it's really important. There's also something called a Cornerstone Employer Network. And this is where many employers and organisations have chosen to get involved and support the work of the Enterprise Advisor Network and the whole thing around careers and enterprise. So if you become a Cornerstone employer, this is about recruiting potentially more EAs from your own workforce, and also undertaking activities that support the whole sort of careers programme. So, for example, offering meaningful encounters to local schools, so where students can come into your business, find out more about your business and sector and so on, and that in turn helps the school to meet the Gatsby benchmarks. There's lots of opportunities, as Cornerstone employers, again, across the country. Devon County Council, my employer, are a cornerstone, and we're looking at how we develop that and build that to support the programme. And of course, from an employer point of view, it's a benefits for schools, but massive benefits for employers as well, in terms of getting that strategic insight, supporting your resourcing, and learning and skills, strategies, and also as a corporate social responsibility activity. So lots and lots of wins if you want to, or your organisation wants to get involved from that point of view. So you can't do any presentation, I think, at the moment without mentioning COVID, and so here it is. You know, with obviously the current challenges, that has had an impact on the enterprise advisor role and careers education in school. It is a real challenge for schools at the moment as they try to support the teaching of the curriculum in a completely different way, and understandably careers isn't their main focus. Unfortunately, it means for my school that I link with, we've had to make some really difficult decisions this year. For example, we've had to cancel the Year 10 work experience that was planned for July because, you know, we need students to focus on preparing for their GCSEs next year. And we also acknowledge that, you know, employers who had offered placements are probably not going to be in a position to offer those this year. So that's been really difficult. But having said that, there have been opportunities as well. And the careers lead in my school has been looking into the wide range of online careers material that's available that we're looking to push out this term as part of the curriculum, you know, so that, you know, as part of the online curriculum. And I've had a role really in terms of, you know, being somebody at sounding board that he can share resources, give some thoughts, you know, from an employer perspective, but also from a parent perspective. So I've sort of had two hats really, but that's been really helpful and helped sort of shape what we will do this year around careers and enterprise. And Simon, I think you've had similar experiences, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. One of the advantages in my school is that the careers leader is also the head of library, and she's absolutely central to all of the online materials that the school has got its hands on and is distributing during this COVID period, just along the same lines as the youngsters are doing their Microsoft team-based learning. So that's really helpful. We have been trialing a new approach, which we were planning to roll out in July, but is now going to have to be delayed until next year. I mentioned that you know, there were military operations, or it seemed like it when Emma got going on something. And one of the big things that she was doing was getting a lot of employers from all over the country to come to the school for big Year 9 type of all-day career events. One of the reasons you may ask, why go so far? The particular geography of where our school is based, we're not blessed with a huge number of employers, and it's quite a poor region of Dorset, so we have to just reach further out. But as I mentioned, we are keen to get more parents involved, so we actually had a template that we were building, which would allow up to 70 different presentations in a day by parents as the young people moved around their normal lessons, but they would be coming in and meeting parents and friends of the school who would give them a 15-minute input into their particular background experience as employer, employee, whatever. The idea being that we would use this as a template for the future and run it far more than once a year. We would start creating out of this pool of parent talent something that was far more accessible and hit some of the Gatsby benchmarks that Jo mentioned a moment ago. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Simon. So we've talked a little bit about impact, and we want to talk a bit more about that, because that's, you know, obviously the most important part of this is to be able to inspire and support young people in that transition from education into the, you know, massively fast-changing world of work that we're in these days. So this slide just shows you a bit more, focuses a bit more on the impact you can make as a volunteer with the school. You know, using your existing local networks and industry contacts that we've talked about. Enterprise advisors create closer links between schools and employers to inspire the next generation, and it really is about helping to bring the world of work to life for students. They can be quite narrow in terms of their thinking about you know, what jobs are out there, and you know, it's only when you start talking to them you know, they start to open up and think about the possibilities that might be open to them. So it's also about making workplaces more accessible to young people so they can experience it for themselves and get a much broader view about what might be open and available to them and the sorts of areas they might want to explore further. The programme is recognised for delivering change and inspiring young people, and it's about reaching all young people, whatever their background or circumstances. So, for example, there are enterprise advisors who are linking with special schools, also enterprise advisors linking with pupil referral units. So, if you've got a particular interest in a particular area, I'm sure there are opportunities there. You can explore and find out more about when you're looking at which school you would be linked with. But it is very much about opening up opportunities for all young people, whatever their background. And Simon, do you want to talk a little bit more about impact?
Yes, I would. Thank you. One of the things, one of the advantages of far more attention being paid into careers in school is that there's been far more research and there is a lot more data and information available. And one of the statistics that caught my eye on quite early on was that the proportion of young people who turned first to their parents for career advice was huge. I mean, we're talking over 90%, and it was significantly higher than any other place that they turned to. And I've been thinking a lot about that because I think actually it is both an opportunity and a threat. And by that I mean that the opportunity is to get parents involved, and this goes beyond what I've already mentioned about the sort of parental work we're involved with in our school. But it's actually to support them in how they can support the young person or people in their house and home around the careers process and the decision points that they have to come across when they're choosing a GCSE or an A-level or a university or an apprenticeship or whatever it may be. We as HR professionals bring a huge amount to that mission. So I'm very conscious that that is something that we can bring further than is being consistently brought. The threat, as I mention it, is that we as parents can easily carry around in our heads our own experience and our own view, historic view of what work was like when we came out of school and college. And of course, we all know on this call that it has changed absolutely fundamentally. And as a result of COVID, is going to change even more in terms of, the challenges in the labour market. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, so in summary, from the perspective of Simon and I as enterprise advisors, there's lots that you'll get out of it being an enterprise advisor. So many benefits, both for you personally, for your local community, and for your employer, your organisation that you work for. So it really is an opportunity to give back to your local community. It's a way of developing and using your skills in a completely different way. It's definitely given me confidence and widened my professional network, which, two of the things that I was looking to achieve. So it's definitely a win from that perspective. It's also ensuring that the workforce of the future has the employability skills we need. As Simon was just saying, it's so important, and as things are changing so rapidly, that we keep on top of that and help our young people to do the same. And that we, as a result of that, then that we can improve employment outcomes for young people, which is an increasingly challenging thing for them to get come out of school and college and achieve the employment outcomes that they seek. It's also a great way to raise awareness of your sector and your organisation, and help your organisation to develop future talent pipelines. And you can use the learning in your own organisation. So, for example, at Devon County Council, our workforce age profile is massively skewed to sort of the 40s and 50s age group. And we had a young workers project that we'd set up in HR. And I was able to use the links with my link school at the time to get into to talk to young people in school. So they did sort of a survey and focus groups and things, which fed into our young workers project. So, to get that intel is so valuable from a HR perspective when you're looking to develop things within your own organisation. So it really is a win-win. I love being an enterprise advisor, and I'm going to carry on doing it, hopefully. So what do you think, Simon?
Yeah, me too. I'm not going to talk about every bubble, but I would just I would go for the one top right that talks about improved outcomes for young people. I think what's going on now, and what we're talking about right this minute on this call, is a process of evolutionary change around this crucial element of our society that, to be honest, we have neglected for long enough. And I think most countries in the world recognise that as well. And so we're part of a movement. We're not going to change everything overnight, but to be involved in the ways that you've heard Jo and me speak in the over the last few minutes, there's such a lot to go at and such a contribution that we can make. And the one thing for sure that we know is that it will improve the outcomes for the young people today and in the future. So it is great to be a part of. Thanks. We're going back to Charlotte now, I think.
Yes.
Bubble.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing those personal experiences, how the program's been. So you'll now be able to see some stats on the screen. And these are just really powerful stats that show the impact of the program that have been taken from evaluating the program. So by thinking about careers education and making sure that we have really good careers education in schools, 86% of young people are less likely to come out of school without not being able to go into education or employment or training. So that means it's only a few people that haven't got somewhere that they're going to outside of school, which is phenomenal. We've also seen that by getting in front of employers early on, by having really important employer encounters throughout school, students will earn 18% more than their peers. And the final stats that you can see under the light bulb symbol have been taken from a student survey, and young people have said that by having good careers education at school, 80% of them have an increased awareness of different careers, and also 72% feel more motivated. And that motivation, it's not just about getting into the right career or job, but it's also motivation at school by recognising what they need to do to get there. So I think those stats, alongside what Jo and Simon have said, just really speak for themselves about the impact that we can make by focusing on good careers education. So hopefully that's really interested you in the programme and you're wondering how you can go forward and apply now. These are the steps that you need to take if you would like to become an enterprise advisor. You can register your interest first of all on a very short online form, which will just give us some basic details such as where you're based, your job title. That is CIPD-enterpriseadvisors.co.uk, and Ali is sharing the link in the chat box as we speak. The next step is that you will be emailed an application form and you'll be asked to return that alongside your CV. So that's just providing a bit more information about why you'd like to get involved and your relevant skills and experience that you could bring to the volunteering role. Shortly after that, you'll have a very quick 20-minute to 30-minute telephone call with myself or Ali or Olga, where we can talk to you a bit more about becoming an enterprise advisor. And then finally, as Jo and Simon mentioned, it is the local enterprise partnership teams who will support you locally. So we get your information across to them, they will support you, will match you up with a school or college, and you will become an enterprise advisor using your skills and knowledge to help schools. So it's really as simple as that. And at the end of the webinar, when you close it, if you would like to, you'll see a box that will direct you to our page where you can sign up. So we're just going to open up now for any questions. If anything's come to mind, please do feel free to drop those into the chat box. Just whilst any questions come through, we've actually had a few questions in advance of the webinar. So I'm just going to read out one or two, and Jo and Simon, if you could answer those, that would be fantastic. So one of the questions that we had coming through was about what advice you would give potential enterprise advisors about making the most of their enterprise advisor role. So is there one thing that you would say has been a great way of you getting the most out of your role?
I think for me, it's being really, like Simon said earlier, considering the school. So although there's some, it's a strategic role, whatever, it very much has to be tailored to the school itself and what their needs are. And I think you have to go in being realistic about what you can achieve. So maybe not being too ambitious about, what you do. You may have a longer term view, but you sort of break it down into, the quick wins and things that you can do in the shorter term. Because I think, like Simon said earlier, schools are under pressure. Careers is just one element, and quite often your careers leader has another job as well as being careers leader. So it's just going in and being realistic about what you can achieve, and looking at the quick wins and so on. But alongside that, it's recognising actually can bring a lot, and it's quite quickly when you start talking to the school, you realise how much you can bring to the school and how helpful it would be.
Thanks. Simon, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, as you heard Joe say earlier, you're allocated about 8 hours. You can give more if you wish, but 8 hours is a sort of de minimis that is suggested. That's a day a month, and it can really very quickly get used up. So one of the things I find is being really careful about how I use my time, and that links to the second thing, which is how I position myself in the school. So the things that I want to do, which probably only I can do. So I'm not trying to second guess anything that the career leader does. If she wants me to take part in stuff, that's fine. But for the most part, I'm doing a lot of the thinking and a lot of the engagement with her, with governors, with the sort of people you've heard Joe talk about. I'll tell you one thing I did do, and it was just the best. And that was I shadowed a student all day. And they didn't realize that I was, because I was actually put onto them. And if they had been awake, they'd have noticed that everywhere they went, I went. But because they were in groups of 25 or 30, I was sort of got lost in it. But I just followed a year 8 student and what their day was. And I sat in their lessons and I absorbed everything that they were learning, but from an employer perspective or a work perspective. And what it gave me was the most incredible insight into what is going on in the classroom, because Joe was talking about the Gatsby benchmarks. It talks about linking curriculum learning to careers. Unless you go find out, you can't really see that so clearly as an employer. So that's the sort of thing I did in the early months, and I'd do it again actually one day, because it was so interesting and gave me so many ideas.
Brilliant. Yeah, I know you talked about that benefit it brings to employers. So there you go. You can see it firsthand from a student. Great. We've had a few questions come through, so I'll make sure we can work through those. So there's a question here about time commitment. How many hours will be required per month or per week? I work part-time, but a full-time mum, so plan my week and month. So are you able to just both comment on that, what it's realistically like?
I mean, I work part-time and I'm a full-time mum as well, so I don't get that. It's difficult. I mean, it's that 8 hours a month. It's difficult to sort of plan scheduled time. Again, I think it depends on the school and what the ask is and where you feel you can add most value. But I think, the schools are really flexible. For me, a lot of it is remotely, emails and things that I do, in between cooking the dinner or whatever, there's you fit it around other things that you've got on in your life. So, and there will be scheduled things like probably a termly meeting with your careers lead and coordinator, which you schedule in advance and so on. So it's really just trying to juggle it. And what I'd also say is if you can try and get a school that's as local to you as possible, that fits either local to home, local to work, or in between, however it best fits for you, that is really helpful as well from my perspective.
Yeah, me too. I don't, my school is not where I live, but it is on a route that I take regularly, so it's about 20 minutes from me. I absolutely agree with what Joe was saying about planning. There are going to be moments when you need face-to-face encounters, but you can do a lot virtually on the phone and this way. The things that I focus on, as you probably heard, are the teachers and the parents. The teachers I tend to engage less regularly, but when I do, I give them a half day or a day activity around what it is that we're actually planning them to do in the classroom. And for the parents, it tends to be early evening stuff, because we're trying to do out of school, the typical sort of that window when you would expect to meet at school, sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening for an hour or two. So, but the main thing is you can really plan it ahead. You're not going to be suddenly told, oh, on Wednesday, are you free? That's never happened to me in nearly 3 years. It's always been stuff that has been weeks ahead.
Great. Hope that's answered that question. We've had another one come through about schools engaging with employers. So the question's from Marie. She's saying, do you find that schools are more open to employers coming in to talk about careers and do events if you are able to link the employer with the curriculum? So yeah, do you find that if you can embed the employer connection with curriculum work, that's more appealing to the school, or how's it been for you both?
I think it helps, but the Gatsby benchmarks and the focus on the Gatsby benchmarks, which also I understand Ofsted will be focusing on more, and where schools are at. We said earlier, Gatsby, one of the things around providing meaningful employer encounters. So I think that does focus the mind on the schools in just getting employers in and having those encounters. Obviously, if it also links with the curriculum, then that's a added benefit. I think for me, it's more trying to get the school to recognise when the activity does link with the curriculum. They perhaps see it a bit separate, so it's trying to build that link. I don't know whether you have the same.
Yeah, I do, and I just build on what you said, Jo. It's probably not that well known, but Gatsby is the foundation that is owned by Lord David Sainsbury, who puts his philanthropic money into this type of thing. But his focus throughout his life has been on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. He has been such a supporter of scientists and engineers in Britain, and so particularly where you have a STEM coordinator, as most secondary schools and FE colleges do, there's far more, momentum, I find, around that particular part of the curriculum, because it just needs more oomph, I think, to get more kids interested in those particular subjects. So I hope that the person who asked the question will get something from what we just said.
Great. We've had a question about careers leaders. Do all schools have one? So I know that a few years ago it was put in place that all schools should have a careers leader, and I know these can take quite different guises. So, for instance, a school could have a careers leader that careers is just their job. I know some teachers do it as part of their job as well, or if the assistant head has taken it on. What's your experience with both your schools? Is it a dedicated careers leader, or is it a teacher that has a dual role? How's it working in your schools?
It's definitely a dual role teacher from my perspective, which is tricky. But I think as long as you've got their senior leadership team support behind them and commitment to it, I think it works well. And I think, like I say, with Ofsted and so on, starting to look at it, I think it's starting to focus the mind of schools a bit more. Obviously budget dependent, that they can, whether they sort of up the hours that the careers leader has and so on. But I think it depends on the school.
It does depend on the school, and in my school, the careers leader is also the head of library, so she has that. It's quite a big job for a school of that size. She was very keen to actually pursue the learning that was put together by the Careers and Enterprise Company for career leaders, and it's really helped her a lot in terms of structuring her thinking and just realizing how much she knows. The other thing that's very powerful, I think, for her is that she is a teacher governor. So she has access to the governing body, and one of the things that a careers leader needs to do in the school is to corral other colleagues to actually work on the careers agenda with, in this case, her, and that has worked really well as well. So sometimes you've got the pressures of the curriculum and the time going against the careers mission, if you like, but her ability to sort of bring them back into, focusing on it has been, I think, fantastic the last 2 to 3 years that I've seen.
Brilliant.
And we're at the early stages of all of this, so the network has only been in place for a short time. The current career strategy and using Gatsby, in this way has been so. There's a lot of work to be done. It don't means perfect, but it feels really good to be part of that journey and helping to support that.
I agree.
And we've had another question through from Jodi, who's a school governor at a local primary school, which feeds into a large high school. So Jodi's question is there an opportunity to work with existing enterprise advisors if there's already an EA in place in a school, or to offer to support a specific school? So I'm guessing Jodi's got a school in mind. How have you found that from your experiences? Are EAs able to shadow each other or support each other?
Yeah, and more than one EA can link to a school. So for me, I've tended to just be me linking to the school, but I know other schools in our area have more than one EA. So yeah, it's really flexible in terms of how you do it, and it's just having a conversation with the LEP, your enterprise coordinator, when you're looking at where you're going to be matched, what your sort of aspirations and interests are, and then seeing if you can make a good match between that and what's required.
Yeah, and I think if Jodi's got somebody in mind, I'd be surprised if they weren't anything other than delighted to have some input.
Yeah.
The other thing we haven't mentioned, there is a forum. It's a little bit like a Facebook forum for enterprise advisors and coordinators. I don't know how many there are now, but certainly north of 500. I'd say 500 to 800, and they're in touch regularly, and they're sharing their own thoughts and ideas, as well as asking, I'm going into such and such a school to do such and such. Does anybody have any materials or any thoughts on it? So one of the things I've noticed in the last couple of years, I don't know if, Joe, you've noticed this as well, but there's a sort of a real sense of communing within this community, in terms of the support for each other, and it doesn't seem to have any boundaries. It goes well beyond my LEP relationship, for example, and it just seems to be a national thing, which I think is great.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of passion and interest behind it, people wanting this to work and, to benefit young people.
Mm.
Fantastic. And Jodi, if the school's interested, I know on the Careers and Enterprise Company there's an area for schools where they can look at signing up. Great, so Ali's just put out a call for any last minute questions. I'm just going to have a look at some of the questions that came forward before. So I guess any words of encouragement from you guys about anyone that's on this call and they're thinking about becoming an enterprise advisor, maybe they're a bit nervous about what they can bring to the role, what would you say to encourage them into volunteering?
I think what I was just saying is you're not on your own. There's lots of support and resources. You don't need prior knowledge of schools or careers. You'll learn that. I didn't know any of that before I came on board. You learn all of that. The key things are having the interest and the passion to get involved, and those skills that we talked about. Strategic thinking, communication, all those sorts of things. So yeah, just go and do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the only other thing I would say is, don't in any way diminish what you know. And secondly, that what you know is almost certainly what they don't know. So it's an additive thing. It's a supplement to it. It's not as if you're, being cast into something where you've got to suddenly be a prima ballerina or something. It isn't like that at all. It's very much around, bringing your experience and expertise into conversations which probably are not being had yet. Mm-hmm. And as you're getting the feel from us, we've thoroughly enjoyed our experience of it, and I'm sure most people who are doing it do too.
Fantastic. So I think that's all the questions that have come through. So I think we'll just wrap up there, just shy of past. So thank you both so much for coming on and for presenting and sharing your volunteering experience. I think it's been so powerful hearing it from yourselves. For anyone that is on the webinar and you'd like to find out more, you can visit our webpage, cipd.co.uk/enterprise-advisor, to find out more about the role and to sign up. And this is also our inbox as well, enterpriseadvisor@cipd.co.uk. So if anything comes to mind, please do drop us a message. And I'm seeing lots of thank yous coming through on the chat box for you both, Joe and Simon. Thank you so much. And thank you for attending, everyone. So when you close this webinar, it will direct you to our page if you'd like to click onto that. And as we said, the recording's available as well for anyone that would like that. So thank you so much for attending, and to our great volunteers for speaking with us today.
Thank you.